So good evening, everyone. Good evening.
Good evening.
So I was going through some of my personal belongings today, my Dharma personal belongings, and I came across a true treasure that has been in my possession for a long time. I don't remember how it came into my possession, but it was not given to me directly by Kobun Roshi, who was my first teacher. But it is a sermon that he wrote on cloth, and it is about 2 feet long and 12 inches high, and a very, in very small, beautiful cursive Japanese writing. And it is a true treasure, almost a museum piece. And again, I don't know how I came to have it, but I do have it, and it's a true treasure. So I'm going to try and get it translated, and then I'll get it framed and we'll put it up in our ancestors hall. And so the interesting thing about this that brought up for me today, this question of teacher, and although I cannot read this sermon, Japanese language follows a lot like Hebrew does. And when you put up Hebrew characters and you put them up on the wall, what is on the wall is manifested in activity and action. And so although I cannot read this sermon, I can feel this sermon, even though I cannot read it. And it is such a treasure. I really want to give it as a gift to this Sangha and to this temple. And so I will get it translated and take care of it. Of course, it would be wonderful to know what it says. And I have never known what it says, but I know that it's a treasure. So that somehow has to do with the question of teacher and this ordination that is coming up on Saturday. It's a very mysterious thing, this question of ordination. I think that in the beginning, if you are fairly young, you have no idea why you are doing this. And yet there's some connection to that teacher that is so strong that pulls you toward that action, that pulls you to enter a deeper intimacy of practice with the teacher. I first got ordained by Kobun Roshi. How old was I? I guess I was 34. And I was raising my children. And I did not manifest as a teacher or as a priest at that time, although I was ordained. And much of that had to do with the fact that Kobun Roshi felt that my children needed me, I needed my children. And so I really could not live the life of a priest at that time. And then later, Kobun Roshi moved away. He moved to Taos, New Mexico. He invited me to go with him, but I would not move my children. They had a father who was local and they needed to have a relationship with him. They had friends, and there was no way that I would move them. So I lost that connection with my teacher, and I did not lose the heart connection with him, but I lost the interaction with him, the daily interaction of Zazen. And then when I went to Japan, I got ordained again because Kobun Roshi had never certified anybody or never registered anybody in Japan. And my friend told me, don't come back to America until you are a fully certified priest. We need good women teachers in the United States. So I did that, and I got ordained again, and followed through then with my teacher until transmission. And of course, I remain in connection with Niho Roshi, but my first root teacher is still a very strong relationship. And, he is living as far as I am concerned, even though he died in the year 2002. And I mean, lots of times I feel, oh, I wish he were here and I wish he could continue to teach. But at the same time, he is alive in me. And that will always be the case for as long as I live. And of course, Nihoroshi is also alive in me, and he is alive and living. And that is a slightly different relationship from that heart-root relationship that I had with Koben Roshi. So that first teacher that you have that sort of awakens you and sees you into the precepts is a very important lifetime teacher, even if you should lose contact with that teacher. There's something so deep in that we don't quite understand. That's mysterious. I shouldn't say we don't understand it. What I mean is it's mysterious and deeply difficult to describe. So this takes place in an ordination, and one is certainly transformed by ordination. One is transformed in Jukai also. Jukai is the taking of the precepts as a lay person, and then the receiving of Rakusu, which is called, it's the small robe. It is also a robe, but it's the small robe. And a priest also wears a Rakusu as an informal robe. And then the big robe that we wear tied over the shoulder is the Okesa. And the Okesa is the deepest symbol that we have in Zen practice. It is, as Dogen Zenji says, the Okesa itself is the body of Buddha. So we wear the teachings of the Buddha when we put that on, or when we put on Rakusu, we wear the teachings of the Tathagata, one who has come forth. And we wear and we manifest those teachings in our daily lives. But the taking of Okesa then is a much deeper commitment to practice than when one takes Rakusu. It's a very deep vow, and one creates a very intimate connection then with the teacher, and really needs the teacher after you take Okesa, because you take it and then you are such a neophyte, you don't know what to do, you don't know what you are doing for years. And it takes the minimum of 5 years before you can be transmitted, and more usually it's 7 to 10. So it's a very long learning process to truly manifest oneself as a confident person in practice, a confident priest, able to hold the Sangha together, able to teach, to be able to come forth in a realized way as a priest. It's a long, long road. And when I think about what we're going to do on Saturday, I just hold my head and I think, oh no, there's so much. I mean, I've been practicing for over 50 years. So, you just get deeper and deeper in your abilities and you're learning. I am still learning. The transmission of the Dharma continues for a lifelong process. And so it isn't as though I have received transmission and I am finished. It continues forever. It continues with my teacher. I continue to realize through him aspects of practice that I still do not know. When I go to Japan, I become very aware of this. Even though I am a transmitted teacher and I'm actually at the same level as my teacher in Japan, we do have levels of teaching, and I'm at the same level as he is. And yet he is so steeped in the depth of the tradition in ways that I am not, because we are constantly having to accommodate ourselves to the American culture. And so it always concerns me, you know, that I have spoken about this before. It always concerns me because as we accommodate, we tend to trivialize to some degree, or we tend not to understand the depth of an action or a particular ritual that we have. And then again, there are so many ceremonies that we don't do here simply because they don't fit quite yet. So we don't do them. So it's an endless practice, and the reliance of the student, the new novice priest on the teacher is very, very strong. And this continues forever. But at some point, when transmission does take place, if transmission takes place, if it does, there's no guarantee. If it does, then there is a recognition together that you are equal. You've always been equal in so many ways, but you are equal. And yet I pay deference to my teacher at the same time. I pay great deference to Nihoroshi, and he is my teacher, and I treat him like my teacher. And we always have a teacher. If our own teacher dies, we pick somebody whom we name as our teacher simply because we just are not off on our own without a teacher. We always have a teacher because the teacher represents Buddha. And the manifestation of the Buddha Dharma Sangha is our deep, deep practice and the understanding of what Buddha Dharma Sangha means together. So the teacher represents the Buddha, and the Dharma is the teaching, and the Sangha is the community, the body of practice, the people of practice, the body of practitioners who manifest the totality of the Buddha Dharma Sangha. Without the Sangha, we have a tremendous incompletion of Buddha and Dharma. At the same time, a teacher is not manifested until there are students. So it's actually the student that manifests the teacher, not that the teacher manifests the students. One has to have a student to say one is a teacher. So this is all very deep and mysterious, and requires tremendous commitment to the practice, to Buddha Dharma Sangha, to truly, truly manifest Buddha's teachings. But I do think Koban Roshi said something about recognize oneself as the totality of confidence in the Buddha Dharma is the completion of the precepts, is the completion of the teachings. So we all know as students, or even I as teacher, recognize that practice of tremendous total confidence in understanding one's Buddha nature, the totality of one's Buddha nature, and the recognition of Buddha nature in each one, to have total confidence in that is not a simple thing that we come to very easily without long practice, without long devotion to practice. And so, even when we take the precepts, we of course throw our whole heart into receiving the precepts, and yet there's deeper ways to, maybe I show deeper going this way rather than deeper understanding that manifests throughout one's whole life. So it isn't that we come to it and are finished. Actually, Nihoroshi's teaching is that we are never finished. And I don't think he means not finished in the sense of that total confidence, but he means we are never finished in our practice. And I found that a very difficult thing when I practiced at Ensuji, because I hardly ever saw Niho Roshi rest. He always had tremendous work before him. And when he first came to the temple, the temple was falling apart. The walkway was all, it had fallen apart, and it was just a bunch of stones, and the cement that had been laid down was cracked. It was really in very poor shape. And so Niho Roshi has spent his years rebuilding the temple. And consequently, he went from 200 to 800 families to take care of. And that's a lot. That's a lot. And his son was working with him for a time. His son is also a priest. Son was working with him for a time until he was offered his own temple in Kurashiki. And of course, he had to accept, because he had to come into his own also and grow as a teacher. So Niho Roshi is never finished. He is always at work, and he is a tremendous teacher in his ability, his calmness to just continue and to do the best he can and as much as he can. Deeply humble man who is never in the limelight at all, and continually brings in other teachers into Ensuji to teach. So how we absorb teachings then from our teacher is one of those silent things that we're maybe not aware of, or we don't think about so much. And yet to be person to person in juxtaposition is really essential for that, because we don't get that same thing over Zoom. We don't get that. We don't see the body at work and how the body moves and how one is at attention. We don't get that in Zoom. And so many teachers have had this question about where we are in the Dharma, where we are in our practice, where we are in Sangha together. And I certainly know that as Sangha come in, I see that people have not practiced the forms for almost 3 years now, and people don't remember. They don't remember what to do. And so this particular teacher does not suffer fools gladly, I'm sorry to say. And so it's not easy on the students then, when I realized that after 50 years of practice myself, and after 25 years of Olympia Zen Center, that I'm back to the beginning with the Sangha. And that's very hard. And as you know, I am not at the beginning of my life. So we have to come back together, and we have to have this holding of teacher-student relationship in person. And that practice enables the Sangha to manifest that full sense of commitment and that sense of confidence that Koben Roshi is talking about. Because we can't do it alone out there in our households. It just doesn't happen. Doesn't happen. So we will be here to witness then this ordination coming up that we have been preparing for. The details are many, many. And so, it's one of those things. It's sort of like a wedding ceremony, all of these months and months of preparation. And then it's over in 10 minutes. So the ordination ceremony will be about an hour. It's not quick. It's not a very fast thing. So it's substantial ceremony. So we really feel the transmission. We feel it happening. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to going past it. Maybe that's really what I mean, so that I can think about other things, and we all can think about other things, and so forth. Today, there's also a question of teacher and student. So I put out a call for volunteers to trim the plum tree because it already began to not bear fruit yet, but already budding is already happening on the plum tree. And if you don't take care of it right away, you can't do it later once it blooms. You must catch it at the immediate moment that those buds appear. And then you have to trim off the suckers and clean it up and get the tree ready to bear fruit. Within 5 minutes after I put out that call, Calvin Malone responded and said, "I'll be over tomorrow." And without hesitation, of course, he's also in a position to be able to do that. But he just comes straight ahead, puts everything else aside, and responds to that request of the teacher. And I am not entirely to Calvin's teacher. I sort of am his teacher. Calvin practiced in prison. He practiced for 28 years in prison, and it was primarily Tibetan practice that he did. And so his style of practice is different, but yet I transmitted the precepts to him here at Olympia Zen Center when he came and lived with us for 6 months after coming out of prison. So we have this relationship of recognition of the teacher and the student, and yet, equals together. And so Calvin came, Steve rented a chainsaw to remove the heavy bulbs. I don't know what they're called, but they are huge balls that sit on the branch of the tree. They grow off of the branch of the tree, and then they send up suckers. And so the idea was that we would lob off those knobs. But the density of the wood is so strong that the chainsaw would not go through that wood. The chainsaw just broke down and would not go through. So Calvin came across the tree lopper, and within about 3 hours, he took care of the plum tree and the apple tree. And so they are ready for the season. But it's that kind of response that is very beautiful for someone to simply respond like that. It's very encouraging to me, and I deeply appreciate his practice. Calvin is somebody who recently took a homeless person off the street and brought the man into his house, because he saw that man sitting there in the rain, totally soaked. And he just said, "I can't leave that man there." So he brought him into his house, has helped him. The man stayed only for about 3 weeks, I think, and then has been in and out and back and forth. But that's the kind of guy that man is. So in a lot of ways, Calvin is my teacher, because I would not be able to do such a thing. Granted, as a woman, it's not an easy thing to do something like that. And so, but that to me is a great teacher who would simply respond in that way, and to have one's heart so deeply moved to just take the person in your car and take that man home with you. I don't know anybody else. I mean, I don't know anybody else who could do that. Well, that's not true. Allison lived with a woman who took in a homeless woman, and the woman has been with her for many years and has no place else to go. So there are people in the world who do that, and I deeply admire them, and I feel like they are my teachers. because they show me how, how shallow I am in many ways. And I think for all of us, I realize that it is something that I can't do as a woman. But at the same time, I think we all want to be able to do that. Wish we could. I think somewhere in us, as in our Buddha nature, we wish we could do that. We could respond to the world in that straightforward way. So anyway, so maybe you've got some discussion. I didn't mean to go on and on and on about this, but the question is the teacher-student relationship and the ongoing nature of that. And maybe you have some questions or thoughts about it, or whatever you want, whatever you're thinking. I don't know who this person Dave is. Maybe Dave is new with us tonight, and maybe would like to introduce himself or herself. There you are. Good evening.
Hi, good evening. I'm on my phone, so I think it's working.
Yeah, of course. Have you been here before, Dave?
I've been on Zoom meetings a couple times before,
Okay.
but not often. I'm kind of new to the area. We moved here probably about in August. So.
Oh, that's great. Where did you come from?
Alaska.
So were you here before? Did I meet you? Did we meet in person?
No, just over Zoom. I think we may
Okay.
have spoken a few times on
Okay.
email too.
Okay, yeah. Well, great. Please show yourself. I mean, everybody was delighted to see your face and to, for you to participate. So, yeah. And we do have newcomer orientation on March 5th at 10 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday.
Yeah, I'm looking in. We may have some family obligations, and I'm kind of waiting for the hard dates, but I was hoping it all works out.
Yeah. And if not, there'll be others coming up. We're promising to do this every month. So there'll be other opportunities for you to come. Yeah. Or even on a Wednesday night, we may do newcomer orientation on a Wednesday night, which is what we used to do. So we'll see how it goes. So,
sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, welcome to this group. So any thoughts? Anybody needs to, any questions at all?
Well, Eido-san, I will say that you are really the first person who has been my teacher before I came to Olympia and Zen Center and became your student. I was, attending retreats and reading and that, but I the basic thing I want to say is that I have sort of welcomed your voice into my life. It's really a constant relationship. I find myself in conversation with you when I'm on the cushion, when I'm going about my day. So it's a relationship that one dwells in and doesn't just sort of check off I've had that conversation, or I've had that book discussion. It's like an ongoing immersive experience.
Right. Yeah. And so you can say that, and it's not a personal thing about me at all. And that is the great mysterious nature of the student-teacher relationship, that it totally transcends any ego on the part of the teacher and the student, even though we manifest ego all the time. But that it's as though the voice of the Buddha Dharma we apply in the teacher. We sort of receive that from the teacher within ourselves. And that voice carries us in lots of ways. And it's very mysterious, because I didn't make it happen. And it's not an ego thing at all on my part. And so that is the manifestation of the triple treasure, then the manifestation of the Buddha Dharma. And it's a very beautiful thing that we have that, because it will carry through your whole life. That root teacher is the teacher that goes through your life. Even if I die, or I should say when I die, you can get another teacher, just because we need to have a teacher so that we don't make so many mistakes, and we can stand before somebody who can just say, I don't know about that. And so that's why a teacher is necessary, so that we don't, the ego doesn't become, overactive. But that is very wonderful experience in life, then, to have that grounding in the Buddha Dharma, in the triple treasure. And the other aspect that's very hard on students too is that, so I say, yes, the teacher does represent the Buddha, but you all know that I'm a human being, and you have seen me be very human and make mistakes. And so the teacher is not a superhuman person ever. And, as we know, we manifest in the relative world, and we carry the absolute. So I think a little bit in America, we're inclined to think that the teacher should be superhuman in some way, or can't make mistakes, or shouldn't make mistakes. And I think that we are new to the understanding of this. I think the Japanese feeling toward the teacher is more relaxed in that sense, or the allowance of allowing the priest to be human being is maybe a little bit better in Japan. But, we are so new in this practice, so we have expected a lot of our teachers, because we are the second generation. And so the first generation were primarily Japanese teachers, very exotic. We thought so much of them, even though they turned out to be deeply human. So I'm a second generation teacher, and there's a lot asked, a lot expected then of the second generation. So.
Eido-san,
Yes.
I'm glad you brought that up, the generational thing, because I'm wondering what you've witnessed in the third generation, or what you imagine third generation teachers, how they may, because I'm fascinated with this idea of how the practice maintains the tradition while also, obviously we're US citizens, so it's going to have a flavor of how we are. We can't escape that. But this dance almost of how we maintain the tradition, so that when people go back to Japan, they can function there and it's truly maintained in its root way, but also is American.
Yeah. Well, I feel the practice already is very American. And we keep saying, oh, the practice needs to change to suit America. And I say, no, America needs to change to suit the practice. Because the practice is a culture beyond any other culture. It is monastic unto itself. And so it's we who should transform to be with practice. Practice is already very American here, which is very concerning in lots of ways. That there's a saying, and some people's attitude is, oh, we don't need the okesa, we don't need robes. What do you need robes for? Well, what do you need ritual for? And to me, this will be the disappearance of practice itself. It will just disappear. So this is how I feel about it. It's that we who must transform to understand the depth of what we have received, And when we understand that depth, when we get it, there's no question about what to do. We just realize the beauty of practice itself, and we want to continue it. I think I've said before, it's a little bit like Elie Wiesel when he was in, and I may have said this recently, so forgive me. Elie Wiesel was, in concentration camp, and they were talking about why should we bother? We're in this concentration camp, and why should we bother to practice our Judaism? And Elie Wiesel said, this has been going on for 4,000 years. Who the hell am I to decide that we shouldn't do it anymore? And this is what I feel. Who the hell am I to decide that only after 50 years in the United States, we don't need that, and we don't need that, and why should we bother with that? And that is to say, I don't get the depth. To me, it is just so obvious that one has not received the transmission, one has not understood the depth of this practice. So that's a little bit where I am, understanding that there's a lot going on in change in the United States. And I am one, along with a bunch of us. I don't know, we're probably maybe about 60 or 80 priests who are trying to hold the tradition together, trying to reawaken it on a traditional setting to more deeply manifest the meanings of what we are doing. So I'm holding on to it as best I can. And as I say, we're already quite Americanized.
Thank you for your words.
Yeah. And it's most interesting. Karen is going to be going to Los Angeles in October, or is it November, whenever it is, in the fall, for the Dai Jukai, the great Jukai. The Jukai that we do, that is the giving of the precepts, is a smaller ceremony, but the great Jukai takes a week long, and in the transmission of the precepts. And so you get a sense about where it all came from and what it's about, and that we're entering the bloodstream of the Buddha. We're entering the actual heart of the Buddha. And this is manifested in that ceremony, that we enter it is, I can't even say it all. It is reenacted. Entering the heart of the Buddha is reenacted in that ceremony. And it's a very rare opportunity. It's the first time it will be done in this country. And so it's a very rare opportunity to experience that. And Karen will also have the opportunity to see a lot of teachers in the same place. And you discover that every one of them is different. We're all wearing similar clothing. We're all wearing the priest clothing, and yet every single one is different. It's so interesting to me, the manifestation of the myriad possibilities of the teacher and the Buddha Dharma. It's so beautiful. So, and when I am in ceremonies, I always cry because of what has manifested in this country. And there was one time that we were there, and I was just sobbing during the ceremony because I looked around and there were 100 American teachers all doing a ceremony together. And I just was sobbing. And Shohaku Okamura came, said, what's the matter? Are you okay? Did somebody die or something? And, it just is so stunning to me that we have been given this why would we tear it down or trivialize it or just pick and choose what we think, is good or that we like? Yeah, so I hope you cry too.
Just your description is already very moving. And I was thinking, Shohako Okumura Roshi's perception would be so different as a Japanese man. I mean, even though he's been in the United States for so very long, I just don't, I wonder if he sensed the magnitude of your experience.
Probably not, because I was the only one crying. I think he just thought maybe somebody died or something. But, I've seen priests cry at ceremonies in Japan. It isn't as though people are stiff and straight at all. There's great emotion in it and very beautiful, beautiful emotion. So, so there's plenty of tears that happen in ceremonies. No shame at all. It's a recognition that one's heart is so deeply moved that one cannot contain the tears that just roll down your face. So, is there anything else, my friends? All right, well, we're going to do a retreat in the morning on Saturday, and then we'll eat lunch together, and then we'll quickly get set up for the ceremony and receive Steve's family that are coming. And we'll all join in the one-mindedness of the ceremony. And this is what is so exciting, that we're together. It will be on Zoom, by the way, but that we'll all be here together physically, and we will be protected. We will just be protected. The Buddha Dharma will manifest, and there'll be no transmission of anything except the Buddha Dharma. So that's it. Yeah. So, all right. So I know Joan, we'll see you on Zoom on Saturday. And Yuta is going to join from Germany. So we're casting out a wide net, and that's really nice. So yeah. Okay, my friends.